The billionaire CEO mockingly asked a waitress for financial advice, but her very first words left him completely speechless. "I'll have the financial advice, with a side of sparkling water," Ethan Cole said, not even bothering to look up from his phone. Sophie Lane paused, pen hovering over her notepad. After 8 hours on her feet at the Marlowe, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, this was exactly the kind of arrogant customer she didn't need. "I'm sorry, sir," she replied evenly. "I don't believe that's on our menu." Her voice stayed polite, though her blue eyes narrowed slightly. Ethan finally looked up, and for a brief moment, he was caught off guard. He'd expected an intimidated server, not a composed young woman with intelligent eyes, assessing him with quiet disdain. "It was a joke," he said, tapping his platinum card against the table. "But since you mentioned it, where would you invest $1 million in today's market?" Sophie's colleagues had warned her about him. Ethan Cole, 33, tech prodigy turned investment mogul, worth over $7 billion. Known for his ruthless tactics and tendency to toy with people when bored. She met his gaze directly. "Honestly, I'd diversify. 40% into emerging market ETFs focused on sustainable energy. 30% into mid-cap value stocks currently undervalued from market overcorrection. 20% in municipal bonds for the tax advantages. And keep 10% liquid for opportunistic acquisitions." The half-smile froze on Ethan's face. He put down his phone. "That's surprisingly specific. Did you memorize that from somewhere?" "No, sir," she said coolly. "Just an opinion. Now about your actual order." "Wait." Ethan leaned forward, suddenly interested. "Explain the emerging market rationale." Sophie glanced at her other tables. "I have customers waiting. They can wait," he countered. "I'm curious now." He gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Sit, 5 minutes. I'll make it worth your while." "I could lose my job." Ethan looked around, then waved over the maitre d'. "Lucas Hayes, I'm borrowing your waitress for a business discussion. Any issues?" Lucas's eyes widened. "Of course not, Mr. Cole. Take all the time you need." Sophie reluctantly sat, setting her order pad aside. "This is inappropriate. So was your surprisingly sophisticated investment advice." Ethan studied her face carefully. "Where did that come from? Finance major?" "Something like that." She straightened the silverware, avoiding his gaze. "Columbia. NYU. Does it matter?" "You asked a question as a joke," I answered. "Though clearly you didn't expect a waitress to have a brain." Instead of being offended, Ethan laughed. "Fair enough. You caught me being an ass, but now I'm genuinely curious." He tilted his head. "The sustainable energy angle is interesting. Why emerging markets specifically?" "Western markets are oversaturated with green investments chasing limited opportunities," Sophie explained. "They're creating a bubble. Meanwhile, developing nations offer greater growth potential, expanding energy needs, fewer regulatory hurdles. Their governments are desperate for infrastructure investment, offering tax incentives that boost ROI by at least 4% annually." Ethan's eyes narrowed with real intrigue. That wasn't just informed, it was expert analysis. "Who are you?" "Just a waitress with an interest in finance," she said with a faint smile. "Now, can I take your actual order, or would you prefer to keep interrogating me about my hobbies?" He studied her quietly for a long moment. "There's more to this story, but fine. Ribeye, rare, truffle mac on the side. And your name?" "Sophie Lane." "I'll put that in right away, Mr. Cole." As she walked away, Ethan found himself watching her with unexpected interest. The grace in her movements, the quiet dignity in her posture. Most of his dates, models, socialites, actresses demanded attention. This woman avoided it. He pulled out his phone and opened a secure messaging app. Need background check. Sophie Lane, works at the Marlowe. Priority. The reply came quickly. On it, preliminary by morning. Ethan slid his phone away just as Sophie returned with his sparkling water. Your food will be out shortly, Mr. Cole. Ethan, he corrected gently, and thank you, Sophie. Something flickered in her eyes, surprise, perhaps before she nodded and moved on. Throughout the meal, Ethan found his attention returning to her. She worked with quiet precision, deflecting a drunk banker's remark with grace. When she finally brought his check, he added a $5,000 tip to a $300 meal. Sophie's eyes widened. This is excessive. Consider it a consulting fee for the financial advice. He buttoned his suit jacket, which, by the way, was better than what I get from half my team at Cole Ventures. I can't accept this. You can, and you will. His tone was firm, but not unkind. And I'd like to continue our conversation sometime professionally. Sophie hesitated, then slid his card and receipt back. I don't think that would be appropriate. Scared. Her chin lifted slightly. Cautious. There's a difference. Fair enough. He pulled out a business card, writing his private number on the back. When you change your mind, call me. I have a proposition that might interest someone with your unexpected talents. If, she corrected softly, taking the card. If I change my mind, Ethan smiled. Trust me, it's when. Outside, the cool Manhattan air brushed his face as he stepped into his car. His phone buzzed. Sophie Lane, 25, community college education. Nothing unusual. He frowned. That couldn't be right. No one learned that level of financial acumen from a community college class. She was hiding something, and Ethan Cole had made billions by uncovering what others tried to hide. In the locker room, Sophie stared at his card. $5,000, the exact amount she needed for next semester's tuition. Coincidence? Or had he somehow known? Later that night, Sophie sat at the edge of her narrow bed, still in her uniform, the city lights flickering through the thin curtains. Her phone buzzed with a reminder, rent due tomorrow. She stared at Ethan Cole's business card again. $5,000. The exact amount she needed to keep her apartment and stay enrolled in her MBA program at NYU. She hated herself for even thinking about it. Finally, she called. Mr. Cole, I was starting to think you wouldn't. His tone was relaxed, almost amused. Have dinner with me tomorrow. Not here. My office. 87th floor. Cole Ventures. 7 p.m. Dinner at your office? She repeated. It's not what you think, he said. Come prepared to talk numbers. She hesitated for a long time. I'm not that kind of person. I know, he replied softly. That's why I called you. The next evening, Sophie stood in the elevator of Cole Ventures, holding a tote bag with her notes. The walls of glass and steel reflected her nervous face. She almost turned back twice before the elevator doors opened to reveal Ethan's sleek office. He stood by the window overlooking the Manhattan skyline, sleeves rolled up, phone in hand. When he saw her, he ended the call immediately. You came. You didn't really give me much of a choice. True. He smiled faintly and gestured toward the table where takeout boxes sat neatly arranged. I didn't know what you liked. So I ordered everything. Sophie raised an eyebrow. That's not how investment works. He chuckled. No, but it's how I hedge risk. They ate in near silence for a few minutes, the hum of the city below filling the quiet. Finally, Ethan spoke. I didn't invite you here for dinner. I wanted to test something. I showed your analysis to my team. She stiffened. Without my permission. They didn't know it was yours, he said. They just knew it was smart. Two of them spent all day trying to disprove it. They couldn't. She looked down. Good for them. Good for you, he corrected. You caught something my analysts missed, a renewable energy company inflating its revenue through falsified production numbers. Her head snapped up. Solaris Energy Group. He nodded slowly. You knew? I suspected. Their reported output doesn't match the energy consumption data from the regional grid. Someone's cooking the books. Ethan smiled slightly. That's what I thought, and you caught it in seconds. He leaned forward. I want you to work for me. Sophie blinked. You already have analysts. I have plenty of analysts, Ethan said, but not one who can see through noise this fast. You don't just read numbers you hear when they lie. I'm not qualified, she said quickly. I don't even have my degree yet. He studied her for a moment, then said quietly, That's not true, is it? Her hands froze on the table. What do you mean? You're not just a waitress, and you didn't learn this at community college. The silence between them thickened. I ran your file twice, Ethan said. It's too clean, too recent. You're hiding something. Sophie's throat tightened. If you think I'm some kind of fraud, I think you're brilliant, he interrupted. And for some reason, you're pretending to be invisible. She stood abruptly. I shouldn't have come here. He didn't move. Then why did you? Sophie stared at him, then said softly, Because I'm tired of being broke. He smiled, but not mockingly. That's honest. So here's my offer. Freelance basis, off the record. You'll work directly under me. I'll pay you 6 figures to start. She blinked. That's absurd. It's a fraction of what you're worth if you're half as good as I think. I can't, she said. I don't want people digging into my past. Then we'll keep it quiet, Ethan said simply. Your work, your pay completely private. I'll protect your identity. She looked at him carefully. Why? Because I believe in betting on people others underestimate. For a long moment, Sophie said nothing. Finally, she whispered, All right. But if this goes wrong, it won't, Ethan said. You'll report to me directly. No one else. She hesitated once more, then nodded. Okay. Good, he said, smiling slightly. Welcome to Coal Ventures, Miss Lane. As she left the building, the city lights shimmered like a warning and a promise all at once. 2 weeks later, Sophie was already working quietly for Ethan under an off-the-books contract. Her code name in the system, SL. Her small corner in the Coal Ventures data analysis room was hidden behind a frosted glass partition. Officially, she didn't exist. Unofficially, she'd already saved Ethan's company from 2 bad investments and uncovered 1 internal leak. She worked fast, too fast. Every time Ethan sent a portfolio to her private line, Sophie responded within hours with annotated corrections, flagged inconsistencies, and a few blunt recommendations. At first, Ethan thought she might be using some insider tool, but when he asked, she said simply, No, just pattern recognition. He started trusting her instincts over his entire team, but not everyone was happy about it. Graham Foster, Ethan's chief of staff and longtime right hand was starting to ask questions. One afternoon, he stood at Ethan's office door, arms crossed. "We need to talk about your mystery consultant." Ethan looked up from his screen. "We're not having this conversation." "Oh, we are," Graham said, walking in. "You're routing major portfolio changes through an unverified external source. Compliance is already asking questions. Who is she? She's good at what she does." "That's not an answer," Ethan sighed. "Her name's Sophie Lane. She's freelance." Graham raised an eyebrow. "Freelance from where?" Ethan didn't reply. "Exactly," Graham said. "No LinkedIn, no record of prior employment in finance, no certifications. She just appeared 3 months ago working at a restaurant. And now she's analyzing billion-dollar holdings?" "She has talent," Ethan said flatly. "She's a liability," Graham countered. "You can't just bring in someone from the street and give her access to confidential data." "She doesn't have access to confidential data," Ethan said. "Only what I send her. That's not the point. Do you even know who she really is?" Ethan's silence was answer enough. Graham exhaled slowly. "Look, Ethan, I've worked with you long enough to know your instincts are usually right. But this one, it feels off. Something about her background doesn't add up." "She's been right every time," Ethan said, standing up. "And that's what matters." "Until she's not," Graham replied quietly. Later that night, Ethan found himself staring at Sophie's latest analysis, a 30-page report deconstructing a tech acquisition that his board had been pushing. Her notes were sharp, surgical. She not only proved the target company was inflating valuation, but also exposed their use of internal shell vendors to create fake revenue streams. At the bottom of the file, she'd written, "Do not proceed. This has the same pattern as Caldwell Financial's Asia subsidiary fraud, different sector, same playbook." Ethan froze. How could she possibly know about the Caldwell case? That was buried deep, accessible only to executives and regulators. He picked up his phone and called her. "Where did you hear about Caldwell Financial?" On the other end, Sophie went completely silent. Then, finally, "I read the filings. Public record." "They're not public," Ethan said. A long pause. Then she said softly, "Maybe I just know how to read between the lines." The line went dead. The next morning, Graham walked into Ethan's office holding a folder. "You should see this," he said grimly. Inside were background verification results, 3 pages of information that, instead of clarifying Sophie Lane's identity, made it stranger. Her social security number was valid, but recently issued. Her prior address records all started 3 years ago. There was no trace of her existence before that, not in university databases, not in tax filings, not even in DMV records. Ethan stared at the papers. "That doesn't make sense." "It does," Graham said quietly. "If someone wanted to disappear." Ethan looked up sharply. "You're saying she's hiding something criminal?" "I'm saying," Graham said carefully, "that no one just erases their entire identity unless they're running from something or someone." Ethan leaned back in his chair, the pieces in his mind refusing to align. He remembered Sophie's hesitations, her refusal to take credit, her reaction to Caldwell's name, and suddenly he knew she wasn't running from failure, she was running from power. The confrontation came 2 days later. The executive conference room at Cole Ventures was glass-walled and silent, except for the hum of the city far below. Sophie sat at the far end, laptop open, eyes steady. Ethan had asked her to brief the board directly for the first time. Everything went smoothly until Graham Foster decided he couldn't stay silent any longer. "Before we proceed," he said, interrupting her presentation, "there's something everyone here should know." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Graham, she's not cleared for this level of access," Graham said flatly. "In fact, she's not cleared for any access. Sophie Lane's background doesn't exist before 3 years ago. No education records, no employment history, no digital footprint, nothing. It's like she appeared out of thin air." Murmurs rippled through the room. Sophie froze. Ethan's gaze shifted to her, searching. "I ran those checks myself," Graham continued. "And what I found is that this woman isn't who she says she is. Which means, that's enough," Ethan said sharply. But Sophie's hands were already trembling. She stood slowly, closing the laptop. "He's right." The room went dead silent. Ethan turned toward her. "Sophie," she swallowed hard. "My name isn't Sophie Lane." Gasps. Her voice was quiet but steady. "It's Ava Carter." Ethan's expression shifted, recognition, realization, disbelief all at once. He had heard that name before. Graham frowned. "Carter? As in—" "Yes," she said. "As in that Carter, the one who disappeared after being accused of insider trading at Caldwell Financial Group." Everyone in the room went rigid. Ethan was the first to speak. "That's impossible. Ava Carter was wanted by the SEC." "Not anymore," she said softly. "The charges were dropped." Quietly. But the damage was done. She looked around the table, meeting no one's eyes. 3 years ago, I was a senior analyst at Caldwell Financial Group. I was engaged to Ryan Caldwell, the founder's son. I found evidence that their firm was manipulating trades through offshore accounts, routing insider information into shell companies, laundering profit margins through subsidiaries in Singapore and Dubai. Her voice cracked slightly. "I went to the board with the data. The next morning, every record tied to me, internal emails, reports, even my keycard history was gone. My login credentials revoked. And within 48 hours, the SEC received an anonymous tip accusing me of the same crime I'd uncovered." The board members whispered among themselves. Ethan remained still, eyes locked on her. "I didn't wait for the arrest," Ava continued. "I knew they'd fabricated everything. I went underground, changed my name, rebuilt my life. I thought if I kept my head down long enough, it would fade." She drew a shaky breath. "But it doesn't fade when someone like Ryan Caldwell decides you're his scapegoat." Ethan's voice was low. "You think Ryan set you up?" "I know he did." Her tone hardened. "He and his father, Richard Caldwell, orchestrated the entire thing. They even used my credentials to move funds during the window of the investigation, ensuring the digital trail pointed directly to me. And they did it perfectly. They didn't just destroy my career, they erased my identity." The room was silent except for the sound of someone's pen rolling across the table. Ethan finally stood. "Everyone out," he said quietly. No one argued. Within seconds, the room emptied until only he and Ava remained. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Ethan said softly, "You should have told me." She looked up at him, eyes filled with something between defiance and fear. "Would you have believed me?" He exhaled. "Yes." Ava shook her head. "No one did. Not my colleagues, not my fiancé, not even my family." He studied her for a long time. "I read the Caldwell reports back then. I remember thinking the story didn't add up. Too clean, too precise. You don't fake 3 years of integrity to pull off one crime. Her eyes widened slightly. She hadn't expected empathy. Ethan walked closer, his tone quieter now. They buried you to protect themselves. She nodded slowly. And I let them. No, he said. You survived them. Ava's eyes glistened, but she said nothing. Then Ethan spoke again, more firmly this time. If what you're saying is true, then Ryan Caldwell and his father didn't just frame you, they're still running that same playbook today. Ava met his gaze. You think they're still manipulating trades? I think, he said, that Caldwell Financial Group never stopped. They just got better at hiding it. Ava hesitated. Even if you're right, you can't go after them. They control everything, lawyers, regulators, politicians. I don't care. Ethan interrupted. You're not the first person they've destroyed, but you can be the last. She stared at him, disbelief flickering into something else, the first spark of hope she'd allowed herself to feel in years. Ethan, she said quietly, you don't understand what you're stepping into. He smiled faintly. I built my fortune stepping into storms. For the first time, Ava smiled back. Just barely. And for the first time since she'd been framed, she didn't feel alone. For the next 2 weeks, Ava and Ethan worked in secret, building their case against Caldwell Financial Group. By day, she continued her consulting work under her Sophie Lane identity. By night, they combed through financial records, searching for the patterns that would expose Ryan Caldwell's crimes. They converted a secure room in Ethan's penthouse into their investigation headquarters, walls covered with timelines, transaction records, and photographs of key players. The space became their sanctuary, the only place where Ava could fully be herself. I found something, Ethan announced one evening as Ava reviewed Caldwell's Asian market trades. She looked up to find him holding a stack of printouts, excitement evident in his expression. After countless hours working together in this intimate space, she'd learned to read his subtle mood, shifts, the slight crease between his eyebrows when concentrating, the almost imperceptible smile when he discovered something significant. What is it? She asked, joining him at the central table, acutely aware of his proximity as he spread the documents before her. 3 more cases with similar patterns to yours, he said. All talented analysts who uncovered irregularities, all suddenly implicated in fraud, all professionally destroyed. His voice held controlled anger. The Caldwells have been systematically eliminating threats from within. Ava studied the cases, recognition dawning. I knew 2 of these people, she said quietly. Brilliant analysts. I never believed they were guilty. They weren't, Ethan said, pointing to the transaction records. Same signature methods used in your case, falsified authorizations, manufactured evidence, consistent timing between discovery and takedown. Ava felt a surge of vindication mixed with sadness for her former colleagues. This proves it's a pattern, she said, but not that the Caldwells are responsible. No, Ethan agreed, but this might. He pulled up an email on his secure laptop. My team intercepted communications between Ryan Caldwell and their compliance officer discussing containment procedures for internal threats. That's still circumstantial, Ava said. We need concrete evidence linking them directly to the fraudulent transactions. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that had become familiar during their late-night sessions. You're right, he said. We need an insider. Ava tensed. That's too risky. Anyone close enough to have that information is either complicit or under their control. Not necessarily, Ethan said. He hesitated. What about your former assistant at Caldwell, James Chen? Ava stared at him. How do you know about James? Background research, Ethan admitted. At her expression, he looked somewhat apologetic. I needed to understand all the players. James was reassigned after I left, Ava said. I have no idea where he is now. London office, Ethan said, pulling up Chen's current profile. Still with Caldwell, but isolated, effectively demoted. He's been passed over for promotion 3 times, despite excellent performance reviews. Ava studied the information, memories of her earnest young assistant flooding back. James was loyal to me, she said softly. He never believed the accusations, which is probably why they sidelined him. Ethan met her eyes. He might help us, or he might report back to Ryan immediately, Ava said, shaking her head. It's too dangerous. More dangerous than living in hiding for the rest of your life? Ethan challenged. At some point, we have to take calculated risks. Before Ava could respond, Ethan's private phone rang. He checked the caller ID and frowned. It's Graham at this hour. He put the call on speaker. This better be important, Graham. It is. Graham's voice sounded tense. Ryan Caldwell just called. He wants to meet with you tomorrow. Says he has a mutually beneficial proposition. Ava froze, blood draining from her face. Ethan's eyes locked with hers. Did he say what kind of proposition? A potential partnership on Asian market expansion, Graham said. He specifically mentioned your recent interest in those markets. The same markets Ava had been researching. It couldn't be coincidence. Schedule it, Ethan said after a brief pause. My office, 2 p.m. Will do, Graham replied, hesitating before adding, Jack, I should mention Ethan. He corrected automatically. Right. Ethan. Ryan asked if you're still working with the consultant with the remarkable insights. His words. Ava's heart stopped. Did he mention anyone by name? Ethan asked. No, Graham said. Just that description. Tell him my consulting arrangements are confidential. Anything else? That's all. Should I be concerned? No, Ethan said, his tone dismissive. Just the usual corporate fishing. Good night, Graham. He ended the call. The room fell into heavy silence. They know, Ava whispered. Somehow, they know I'm working with you. Ethan shook his head. They suspect, but they don't know. If they had proof, Ryan wouldn't be making social calls. He'd be threatening legal action. This is exactly what I feared, Ava said, pacing. I need to disappear, change identities again, move cities. Stop, Ethan said, stepping into her path, his hands coming to rest on her shoulders. Running is exactly what they want, he said. It reinforces the narrative that you're guilty. What choice do I have? Her voice cracked with frustration. They destroyed my life once. They'll do it again. And this time, they'll destroy you too. Let them try, Ethan said quietly. The confidence in his voice made her pause. I'm not some junior analyst they can intimidate, he said. I'm Ethan Cole. My company's worth more than theirs. My political connections run deeper. And unlike them, I don't have a history of suspicious analyst departures. Ava looked up at him, realizing how close they were standing. In the weeks they'd worked together, something had shifted between them, a growing trust, yes, but something more, something that made her heart race in a way that had nothing to do with fear. You don't understand what they're capable of, she said quietly. I understand exactly what they're capable of, he said, his hands tightening slightly on her shoulders. "What you don't understand is what I'm capable of when someone threatens people I care about." The simple declaration stunned her. 3 years of isolation had made her forget what it felt like to have someone in her corner, someone willing to fight for her. "Why are you doing this, Ethan?" "Really?" she asked. "You've built your reputation as a ruthless businessman. Why risk everything for me?" Ethan was silent for a moment, his expression uncharacteristically vulnerable. "Because when you walked into my life," he said finally, "you were the first real thing I'd encountered in years." His voice was low, honest in a way she'd never heard before. "Everyone in my world wants something from me. Money, connections, status. You challenged me, saw through me, called me on my, and despite everything you've been through, you still have more integrity than anyone I know." The raw sincerity in his voice rendered her speechless. "Also," he added, a hint of his usual confidence returning, "I really hate losing, and I'm not about to let the Caldwells win." Despite everything, Ava laughed, a genuine sound that surprised them both. "So, what's your plan?" she asked. "Walk into a meeting with Ryan Caldwell and accuse him of framing me?" "No," Ethan said, eyes gleaming with strategic calculation. "I'm going to make him think I'm interested in his proposition while using the meeting to gather intelligence. He'll be suspicious, of course, but his ego won't let him pass up the opportunity to assess whether I know about you." He released her shoulders, stepping back to give her space. "Meanwhile," he continued, "you'll be monitoring the meeting remotely." "What?" "No, that's too risky." "It's a controlled risk," he said. "You know Ryan better than anyone. You'll recognize his tells, the hidden meanings in his statements." Ava considered the strategy. It was dangerous. But Ethan was right. This might be their best opportunity to gather information. "If he discovers I'm involved, he won't," Ethan said, confidence unwavering. "Trust me, Ava." Those 2 words, "trust me," had been the downfall of many. Yet looking at Ethan now, she realized she did trust him, perhaps more than she'd trusted anyone since her world collapsed. "All right," she conceded, "but we do this my way. No unnecessary risks." "Agreed," Ethan said. He checked his watch. "It's late. You should get some rest before tomorrow." Ava nodded, gathering her notes. Then she hesitated. "I can't go back to my apartment," she said quietly. "If they're watching you, they might be watching me too." "Stay here," Ethan said without hesitation. "The guest suite is ready. It's secure, private, and has a separate entrance. No one will know you're here." His tone was practical, but his eyes held something more complex. The thought of staying in Ethan's penthouse, being that close to him, sent an unexpected flutter through her chest. "Just for tonight," she agreed finally. As Ethan showed her to the guest suite, luxurious yet understated, Ava felt oddly at home, despite the unfamiliar surroundings. For 3 years, she thought, I've been running, hiding, looking over my shoulder. Tonight, for the first time since my world collapsed, I feel protected. "Thank you," she said simply as Ethan prepared to leave her at the door. He paused, studying her face with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. For a moment, she thought he might say something, or perhaps do something that would cross the careful boundary they'd maintained. Instead, he simply nodded. "Sleep well, Ava." As the door closed behind him, she released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Tomorrow would bring a confrontation with the man who had destroyed her life. Tonight, she was under the protection of the man who might help her reclaim it. Ryan Caldwell arrived at Cole Ventures precisely at 2 p.m., a study in calculated charm. Tall and classically handsome, with the easy confidence of old money, he greeted Ethan with the warmth of a long-time colleague rather than a competitor. "Ethan, appreciate you making time." His handshake was firm, his smile practiced. "Impressive operation you've built here." From the secure monitoring room adjacent to Ethan's office, Ava watched through the one-way glass, a headset allowing her to hear every word. Seeing Ryan again, his familiar gestures, the way he casually adjusted his Patek Philippe watch brought a flood of painful memories. "This is a mistake," she whispered into the microphone, connected to the nearly invisible earpiece Ethan wore. "He's too good at this game." Ethan gave no indication he'd heard her, smoothly directing Ryan to the sitting area of his office rather than the more formal conference table. "What brings Caldwell Financial to my door?" Ethan asked, tone casually curious as they settled into the leather chairs. "We don't typically move in the same circles." Ryan laughed easily. "That's precisely why I'm here. Our firms have complementary strengths, your tech innovations, our established Asian market presence. Seems like a natural fit for collaboration." "Interesting timing," Ethan observed. "We've only recently begun exploring those markets." Ryan's smile didn't waver. "News travels fast in our world. Word is, you've been making remarkably astute moves in territories typically challenging for newcomers." Ava tensed. The reference was too specific to be coincidental. "I have good people," Ethan replied, non-committally. "Indeed." Ryan leaned forward slightly. "In fact, I've heard you recently acquired quite the analyst, someone with unusual insight into market patterns." Ava's heart pounded. "He's fishing," she whispered to Ethan. "He suspects but doesn't know for certain. We're always recruiting talent," Ethan said, his expression revealing nothing. "Of course." Ryan sat back, seemingly relaxed. "Speaking of talent, do you remember that unfortunate business with Ava Carter a few years back?" The direct mention of her name sent a shock through Ava's system. She gripped the edge of the console, knuckles white. Ethan raised an eyebrow, the picture of mild interest. "Vaguely. Analyst involved in some trading scandal." "Senior analyst," Ryan corrected. "Brilliant woman. We were engaged, actually." "I didn't know that." "Few did. We kept our relationship relatively private." Ryan's expression shifted to one of practiced regret. "Devastating when we discovered what she'd been doing, using client information for personal gain, manipulating positions." Ava fought the urge to scream at the blatant lies. "Sounds like a breach of trust on multiple levels," Ethan observed. "Exactly," Ryan nodded, studying Ethan carefully. The personal betrayal was difficult, but the professional implications were worse. She disappeared before the full investigation concluded, essentially an admission of guilt. "Or self-preservation," Ethan suggested mildly. "Your firm has a certain reputation for handling internal issues decisively." A flicker of something's surprise. Concern crossed Ryan's face before his smooth mask returned. "We believe in accountability, as I'm sure you do." "Absolutely," Ethan said, "when applied to the right people." The subtle emphasis wasn't lost on Ryan. His eyes narrowed slightly. "The right people generally reveal themselves through their actions, don't they?" The conversation had shifted from cordial to charged meanings layered beneath seemingly innocent exchanges. "He's worried," Ava said into the microphone. "Change tactics. Ask about their recent personnel changes." Ethan smoothly redirected. "I noticed Caldwell has experienced significant turnover in your analytics department recently." unusual for a firm that values loyalty. Ryan hesitated just long enough to confirm the hit had landed. Restructuring to improve efficiency, standard business practice. Of course, Ethan said. Though losing 4 senior analysts in 18 months seems costly. The financial industry evolves, Ryan replied smoothly. Some adapt, others don't. His smile turned razor-thin. But we're not here to discuss HR strategies. I'm proposing a joint venture in the Vietnam tech sector. He proceeded to outline a partnership proposal that on the surface appeared advantageous to both companies. As he spoke, Ava analyzed his presentation, spotting the hidden traps clauses that would give Caldwell privileged access to Cold Venture's proprietary trading algorithms, client lists, and internal procedures. It's a data mining operation, she told Ethan. The partnership is just cover to access your systems. Ethan listened with polite interest, asking occasional questions that revealed nothing of his true thoughts. I'll need time to review the specifics with my team, he said when Ryan concluded. Of course, Ryan stood, buttoning his suit jacket. Take all the time you need, though markets move quickly, as you know. Ethan walked him to the door. One question before you go. Why approach me directly? Our firms have acquisition departments for this sort of thing. Ryan paused, studying Ethan with newfound intensity. Let's just say I prefer to look a potential partner in the eye. Tells you much, and more than spreadsheets and projections ever could. And what do you see? Ethan asked. A worthy adversary or ally, depending on your decision. Ryan extended his hand. I look forward to your response, Ethan. After Ryan departed, Ethan locked his office door and joined Ava in the monitoring room. She was already reviewing the recorded meeting, making notes on Ryan's behavior patterns. He's definitely suspicious, she said, without looking up. The way he brought up my case so directly, he's testing whether you know who I am. Agreed, Ethan said, loosening his tie. But he's not certain. If he had proof, he'd have been more direct. Don't underestimate him, Ava said. Ryan excels at appearing casual while strategically cornering his prey. The proposal is a trap, she added. He wants access to your systems, your data. Obviously, Ethan said, sitting beside her. The question is why? What does he expect to find? Evidence that I'm working with you, Ava said. Transaction records, communications, anything that would confirm his suspicions and potentially implicate you in harboring a fugitive. Then we give him exactly what he wants, Ethan said, his expression shifting to one she recognized the strategic predator who had built a financial empire. What do you mean? We accept the proposal with modifications that limit their access. Of course. Then we use the partnership to access their systems. Ava stared at him. That's incredibly risky. High risk, high reward, Ethan said, eyes gleaming with determination. We need internal documents to prove they framed you. This gives us a legitimate way in. There's nothing legitimate about corporate espionage, Ethan. It's not espionage if they invite us in, he countered with a faint smile. Besides, we're not stealing trade secrets. We're gathering evidence of criminal activity. Ava stood, pacing the small room. Even if we could access their systems, what exactly are we looking for? They would have purged any incriminating evidence years ago. No one purges everything, Ethan said. There are always traces, especially in an organization that size. He leaned forward. Think, Ava. Where would the evidence be? She closed her eyes, mentally walking through Caldwell Financial's infrastructure. The compliance department maintains untouchable archives regulatory requirement, she said. and Richard Caldwell kept a private server for sensitive communications. Could we access either? Ethan asked. The archives, possibly through the partnership, Ava said slowly. The private server? Impossible without physical access to their headquarters. Ethan was quiet for a moment, thinking, what if we had physical access? Ava laughed incredulously. What are you suggesting? Breaking into Caldwell Tower? Not breaking in, walking in. Invited. Ethan stood, energy radiating from him. Caldwell Financial's annual charity gala is next month. Every major player in the industry will be there. Including you? Ava asked. Including us, Ethan said, his eyes meeting hers. If we accept this partnership proposal, we'll naturally be invited. It's the perfect cover. Ava felt a chill run down her spine. You want me to attend an event filled with people who know exactly who I am, people who were involved in destroying my career? Not as Ava Carter, Ethan said, as Sophie Lane, the mysterious financial consultant who never appears in public. Until now. They'll recognize me. Will they? He asked. It's been 3 years. You've changed your appearance, your style, your mannerisms. He gestured to her shorter, darker hair, her different makeup style, the subtle but significant changes in her presentation. Besides, he said, people see what they expect to see. No one will be looking for Ava Carter at Ethan Cole's side. The plan was audacious, bordering on insane. Yet Ava couldn't deny it had potential. Ryan's unexpected approach had created an opportunity they hadn't anticipated. It's a massive gamble, she said finally. Life is a gamble, Ethan replied, his expression softening. But for what it's worth, I'm betting on you. The simple statement, delivered with such conviction, touched something deep within her. If we do this, Ava said slowly, we need a foolproof plan, contingencies for every scenario, and a clear exit strategy if things go wrong. Already working on it, Ethan said, his confident smile returning. Trust me, by the time we're done, Ryan Caldwell won't know what hit him. As they began strategizing, Ava realized something had fundamentally changed. For 3 years, she had been reacting, running, hiding, surviving. Now, for the first time, she was taking control, moving from defense to offense. The shift was both terrifying and exhilarating, and so was the growing awareness that her feelings for Ethan had evolved beyond professional alliance or even friendship. Something deeper was developing, something she wasn't ready to name, but couldn't ignore. As Ethan outlined his initial thoughts for their counterstrike against the Caldwells, Ava watched him with mixed emotions. He had become her champion, her partner in this dangerous game. But allowing herself to feel more would introduce a vulnerability she couldn't afford, not with everything else at stake. Yet when their eyes met across the table, the connection between them was undeniable. For better or worse, their fates were now intertwined. The weeks leading up to the Caldwell Financial Charity Gala were a blur of preparation. By day, Ethan and Ava refined the details of their supposed partnership, crafting legal language and public statements that would withstand scrutiny. By night, they built the hidden framework of their counterattack, a covert operation that would unfold the night of the gala itself. Ethan had arranged everything down to the smallest detail. Ava would attend as Sophie Lane, introduced as his senior financial strategist. Her credentials, digital footprint, and even background checks had been meticulously fabricated by Ethan's cybersecurity team. Still, The idea of walking into Caldwell Tower made her stomach twist. "Every instinct I have says this is a trap," she told Ethan as she studied her reflection in the mirror of his penthouse dressing room. Her sleek black gown fit like armor, elegant but commanding. The woman staring back didn't look like the one who had once been humiliated and broken. "That's because it is," Ethan said from behind her, fastening his cufflinks. "But it's a trap we're setting, not falling into." Ava turned to face him. He looked devastating in his tailored navy tuxedo, confident, composed, untouchable. "You're too calm," she said. "Do you always look this unbothered before walking into enemy territory?" "Occupational hazard," he replied with a faint smile. "I've learned that the calmer you look, the more everyone else panics." Ava shook her head, suppressing a nervous laugh. "You make it sound easy." "It's not," he said quietly. "But we don't have to win tonight. We just have to make them believe we're playing their game." She exhaled slowly, steadying herself. "And if Ryan recognizes me, then we improvise," Ethan said. "You've done harder things." Their eyes met, a moment of unspoken understanding passing between them. When they arrived at Caldwell Tower, the gala was already in full swing. The top floor had been transformed into a glittering sea of crystal chandeliers, champagne, and calculated smiles. Cameras flashed as guests arrived, each one greeted by hosts eager to display power disguised as philanthropy. Ava stepped out of the car first, her posture impeccable, her expression calm. Ethan followed, placing a steadying hand at the small of her back as they entered the building. To the watching crowd, they were simply another power couple, beautiful, composed, untouchable. Inside, the air buzzed with wealth and hypocrisy. Ryan Caldwell stood near the center of the room, surrounded by admirers. His expression shifted almost imperceptibly when he saw Ethan. "Ethan Cole," Ryan greeted warmly as they approached. "And this must be the famous consultant I've heard so much about." Ava extended her hand, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "Sophie Lane," she said smoothly. Ryan took her hand, holding it a moment too long. "Pleasure's all mine," he said, his gaze sharp with faint recognition. "You seem familiar." "I get that sometimes," she replied lightly, slipping her hand free. Ethan's tone was easy. "Sophie's been with me for years, invaluable to our firm's success." Ryan smiled thinly. "I can imagine." The social pleasantries continued, but Ava could feel the tension humming beneath every exchange. She played her part flawlessly, laughing at the right moments, engaging in discussions about market strategies, even accepting compliments from people who had once called for her professional ruin. Meanwhile, Ethan moved through the crowd, greeting board members and executives, subtly gathering intelligence. Every handshake, every conversation was calculated. At exactly 9:30, Graham, operating from a remote surveillance hub, confirmed their access points were active. Ethan had coordinated a small team of trusted cybersecurity specialists who were using the gala's guest Wi-Fi network as a Trojan horse to infiltrate Caldwell's internal servers. All Ava had to do was keep Ryan distracted long enough for the data extraction to complete. It would have been easier if Ryan hadn't decided to corner her. "Care for some air?" he asked, gesturing toward the balcony overlooking the Manhattan skyline. She hesitated only a second before nodding. "Of course." Outside, the cool night air bit against her skin, carrying the hum of traffic far below. Ryan leaned casually against the railing. "You're quite remarkable, Miss Lane. I can see why Ethan values your insight." "Thank you," she said, keeping her tone polite. Your understanding of market patterns is uncanny, Ryan continued. Almost as if you've seen them before. Her stomach turned. I analyze data, Mr. Caldwell. Nothing more. Still, he said, studying her face closely, there's something familiar about your eyes. I could swear I've seen them before. She forced a smile. Maybe in another life. Ryan chuckled. Perhaps. His smile faded slightly. Tell me, does Ethan know who you really are? Her heart nearly stopped. I'm not sure what you mean, she said carefully. Oh, come now, Ryan said softly, stepping closer. Did you really think a new name and a few years out of sight would erase you, Ava? Her mask slipped. For an instant, she couldn't breathe. Ryan smiled, victorious. You didn't think I'd forget the woman who almost destroyed my family's company, did you? I didn't destroy it, she said quietly. I exposed it. Semantics, Ryan said with a shrug. And look where that got you. She forced herself to stand taller. You framed me, he smiled coldly. I protected what was mine. You were naive, idealistic. You thought integrity could survive in our world. I still do, she said, voice steady now. That's why you'll lose. He laughed, genuine amusement. Lose? My dear Ava, you're standing here under a false name, depending on Ethan Cole's protection. You've already lost. Inside her earpiece, Ethan's voice was calm but tight. Ava, step away. Extraction's complete. We have what we need. But she didn't move. Not yet. I hope you enjoyed your little game, Ryan said, turning toward the door. Because now, it's over. Ava's voice stopped him cold. No, Ryan, it's just beginning. He turned back, amused until he saw the small microphone pinned discreetly inside her necklace. You didn't think I came here unprepared, did you? She said quietly. You just confessed to falsifying evidence and framing me, and that conversation was broadcast directly to multiple secure servers. For the first time, Ryan's composure cracked. You think anyone will believe you? Ethan's voice came through her earpiece again. Time to go, Ava. Now. She smiled faintly. They don't have to believe me, Ryan. They just have to start asking questions. As she turned to leave, Ryan reached for her wrist too late. Security approached, alerted by Ethan's team under the pretense of a disturbance. Within moments, Ava was safely in the elevator with Ethan, the gala fading behind them. Her pulse still raced as the doors closed. You could have been caught, Ethan said sharply. What the hell were you thinking? She met his gaze. That I wasn't going to let him rewrite my story again. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, slowly, Ethan's anger gave way to admiration. You're incredible, he said quietly. Ava exhaled shakily, the adrenaline finally subsiding. We got what we needed? He nodded. Everything. Internal communications, transaction histories, recorded audio. It's enough to bury the Caldwells. A small, disbelieving laugh escaped her. After all these years, Ethan's expression softened. It's over, Ava. But deep down, she knew better. As the elevator descended, she looked at her reflection in the mirrored walls. For the first time, she saw not the victim of a conspiracy, but the woman who had finally fought back. And somewhere between fear and triumph, she realized she was no longer alone in the fight. The fallout was immediate. Within 48 hours, multiple news outlets had obtained excerpts of the recorded conversation between Ryan Caldwell and Ava, released anonymously. Though everyone in the financial world suspected Ethan Cole's hand in it, The audio was damning. Ryan's calm admission that he had protected what was his was enough to ignite a full-scale investigation. Coldwell Financial's stock plummeted 20% in a single day. Regulators reopened old cases, journalists unearthed buried reports, and the Coldwell empire, built on deception and intimidation, began to crack. Richard Coldwell, the patriarch, released a statement denying all wrongdoing. But the damage was irreversible. Investors fled, partnerships dissolved, and within a week, the firm was facing class action lawsuits from former employees and shareholders alike. Through it all, Ava stayed out of the spotlight. She watched the chaos unfold from Ethan's penthouse, torn between vindication and disbelief. "I thought I'd feel different," she admitted one night, staring out at the city lights. Ethan joined her by the window. "How so?" "I thought I'd feel free, but mostly, I just feel tired." "You've been fighting a battle no one believed in for 3 years," Ethan said gently. "You're allowed to feel tired." She smiled faintly. "You sound like someone who's fought a few himself." He chuckled softly. "Maybe, but I've never met anyone who fought as hard as you." They stood in silence for a moment, the city shimmering below, a reminder of both everything they'd lost and everything they'd survived. Then Ava turned to him. "What happens now?" Ethan's expression softened. "Whatever you want to happen." She hesitated. "I don't even know who I am anymore. Ava Carter died 3 years ago. Sophie Lane doesn't really exist." "Then maybe it's time to stop hiding behind names," Ethan said quietly. "You don't need either of them to define you." Her eyes met his, and for the first time, she allowed herself to believe he might be right. A week later, the SEC formally cleared Ava of all wrongdoing. The evidence she and Ethan had exposed not only exonerated her, but implicated multiple senior executives across Coldwell Financial's international branches. Ryan Coldwell was arrested on charges of fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. His father, Richard, resigned under mounting pressure, vanishing from public view. The empire that had destroyed her was gone, but victory came with a strange emptiness. When Ava returned to her small apartment to pack her belongings, she realized how much her life had revolved around survival, not living. Now, for the first time, she had the luxury of imagining something different. That evening, Ethan showed up at her door. No suit, no pretense, just the man beneath the empire. "I thought you were supposed to be celebrating your victory," she said, leaning against the doorway. "I don't celebrate alone," he said simply. She smiled faintly. "I don't even know what comes next for me." "Then we'll figure it out together," he said. "No contracts, no aliases. Just whatever this is." Ava studied him for a long moment, the man who had once been her adversary, now the only person who truly knew her story. Then she stepped aside. "Come in." He did, and for the first time, there were no lies left between them. The world outside was already moving on, headlines shifting, scandals fading, but for Ava Carter, it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about rebuilding, about learning that redemption doesn't always come from clearing your name. Sometimes it comes from finding someone who believes in you when no one else does. And as the city lights glowed against the night, she realized something she hadn't felt in years. Peace.